Hello there, Inky Fingers here, and this is Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Now in today's little video, I'm going to be painting this scene. The Stone Greats original teddy bear shop. This is in York, in England, and it's just one of these fantastic, old-fashioned, timber-framed, ancient buildings, that the same type of building that York has everywhere, and the perfect thing to paint. Now I have drawn the scene out already. If you want to know how I did this kind of drawing, then you could refer to one of my other videos. I think it was Drawing Buildings 101 or something like that. And that I showed you how to look at things as simple shapes and how to measure and get perspective, that type of thing. So have a look at that if you haven't seen it, and you'll see exactly how I drew this. Although this picture was not that difficult, because again, when you look at it, it is, if you put it in this component parts, we have a rectangle, we have a square, we have here a little rectangle. So everything's in simple shapes. So as long as you can put simple shapes down on your paper and measure it up so that they're at least in proportion, then you're fine. Now we have got some shops in the background. I have sort of drew some details in, but I'm not really going to be painting anything in there as such, because I want to keep obviously the centre of interest for the teddy bear shop itself. And I have put some people in, because if you're going to have a scene like this, really it's very good to put a couple of figures in, basically just for scale really. And I don't know if you can see it on here, but I have used masking fluid, and I've masked out the people, and I have masked out the window frames of both windows. Now the paper I'm using is a sheet of this Fabriano 1264. So now what I need to do is to actually ink this in. Now to ink it in, I'm going to be using this 0.5mm Technograph type pen. Now this is going to be, I think, quite a neat drawing. It's going to be quite sort of technical looking at the end of the picture. It's not going to have too many free lines, so I'm going to be following on pretty accurately to what I've already drawn. And so it's just a matter of going over the 0.5mm nib is a perfect size for doing this type of thing. So that's now the drawing inked in. And we can see now, as we can actually see the dark lines of what it's like compared to the original photograph, which is not too bad. Now to start this picture off with the watercolour washes, normally you would start with the sky because that's the most distant, but there's a sky area, tiny little thing, so I think we'll just leave that for now, and we'll leave all the background for now, and we're just going to concentrate on getting the main washes on for this building itself. Now colour wise, there isn't too much going on. We have here some sort of Naples yellow, with, I gather this must be like dirt or whatever, so we can just mix something in there, or we can do a lot of splatter in this to give it a nice bit of texture. The woodwork is a lovely sort of luscious mid to dark toned green, and it's the typical sort of ochre grey for the pavement, and that's about it. Quite straightforward. So we'll start off by putting a wash of Naples yellow and whatever we're going to mix in with it around it into the top plastered part of the building. So I'm going to put some Naples yellow, which is this here. Give this nice warm colour, but it is a little bit too pure. So what I'll need to do here is to maybe dirty it up a little bit. So let's try putting a little bit of perhaps raw sienna. That's just going to give it a little bit of dirt, which we would use as our first wash. Remember, this will only be an underwash. All my paint's disappearing here. And then all on this area, all we need to do is simply apply this wash. We can go over this because that is just basically an outline. And we've got some of the wash we can put around here, and that's it. And that's most of the picture covered already. Now, as this is still wet, what we can do is, because it's old, we can give it a little bit of texture straight away by getting some kitchen roll and just ripping a part off, so you've got this uneven fluffy end, and then just gently here and there where you want it, and we just tap off some of this, just so it's going to give this sort of slightly patchy appearance. And then what we can do is just put maybe a little bit more raw sienna into this mix, and then just drop it in here and there where that dirt is. Put some water on your brush and then just pull it around. Just to make it look like it's got this years and years worth of grime and dirt on it. So we do not want this to be a nice pristine yellow ochre colour. Not being particularly neat. We put a little bit across here and just a touch around there, but it's mainly this part here I'm more concerned about. And then once we've got this nice bits of texture, we can go back to our kitchen roll, just rip off the wet end, so we've got more of a fluffy end again, and then just here and there. It's up to you where you want to put it. You just put it this wet again, so I'm just going to rip off that so it's a dry end, and I'm just going to give a little bit of dabbing here and there, so we've got this again, this nice textured, mottled, slightly dirtyish sort of a yellow ochre colour. So now the next thing we need to do is, this is quite a large area, so we'll get this part covered, and we can see this is a very warm kind of it's sort of Naples yellow ochre with some grey in it. So I'm going to mix a grey by doing one of my favourites, is by using French ultramarine, like so, and then sticking some light red, which is this colour here, and that will make a really nice sort of bluey slate type grey, like so. And I also put a little bit of yellow ochre. I'll just put it into this this receptacle here. This yellow ochre is going to be the underwash, and then this colour is going to be swept on in the wet wash, and just let it do something, so you got this mix of the different colours. But we don't want it too strong, the yellow ochre, so again, just scrub this on. You can go over this, over the people, remember, because the people are masked out. Give the brush a little bit of abuse, So we have that, and then we go into this, and then just sweep in, sweep across. Always sweep across horizontally, because the pavement is horizontal. Remember, paint things or draw things in the way they go or grow, and the pavement is naturally flat, so we do it horizontally. I'll just put a little bit there, up there, so, like so. And that gives us our sort of greyish coloured pavement with these lighter ochre coloured areas. Now the green wooden areas, I thought the camera was rolling, but it wasn't, so sorry about that. But this green is just two kinds of green. I've got a green here and a green here. Mixed together, it gives this sort of darkish but still quite nicely coloured green. And this is just, of course, the underwash. And I've just gone over it all over the green areas, and I just have to finish it off by painting in these parts here. And that is all of this area here painted in. It is just an underwash, so some other washes will go on over this, especially to give it shape and form with the shading and the shadows. Now, as we're waiting for this to dry, I can put a little bit more detailing or colour into the pavement. It's because it is flat at the moment. So to do that, I'm just going to go over into the same colours I used before, but I can also use some of this sky colour. And I'm just going to really darken some of this up. Just to give it a little bit more of a grey undertone. And then brush in the water, and I'm just going to drop some clean water on, so it's going to dilute it a bit, especially as it's getting more dilute as I put it down. I will make the road darker to make it look more like tarmac later on. Again, we go over the people. A little bit more blue, a little bit more light red. And just want to make a slightly stronger mix. And then in that, while this is still wet, I'm going to do a little bit of splatter into this wet wash. Just to give it a little bit of texture. And because it's wet, this splatter will just spread out, so it's not going to be a hard splatter. It will be soft, as you can see what's happening, and it's just going to give a nice little soft bit of detailing to the actual pavement. Now, as we wait for this to dry, we can paint in the window and the top floor. Now, if you look at the photograph, it's either something sort of blue behind it, so it's maybe like or more of a bluish paint, or it's reflecting the blue sky, which we don't know on this photograph because it's completely blown anyway. But it does look quite sunny. So to make this, all we need to do is to have some probably cobalt blue, and we can add a little bit of carbon black, just a bit, and that will make it nice and dark. So cobalt blue there, a little bit of carbon black. We'll have a little look. So that's quite nice. It's not going to look right if it's just plain black, but cobalt blue on its own is going to be far too vivid, too bright. So tone it down with a little bit of black and it'll be nice. So with this, I have masked the window frame off, so I can just go over the entire thing. So we have the whole thing masked out. These little bits of pools of colour is where it just rests against the bottom of the masking fluid, because this table is on an angle sort of like that. So it is, the watercolour is being pulled down. Now that is just a pale, like a single tone, so we want to darken that up, especially in the top. So what I'm going to do, again, our trusty little bit of kitchen roll. Same thing as we did with this top. I'm just going to very gently here and there dab. So we're going to have a little bit of variability, because this is, if you can imagine, this is old glass. And old glass is not going to be perfectly rigid and square like modern windows. One pane might be straight and the other pane might be ever so slightly off at an angle, and it goes with all of them. So each pane may just reflect a little bit of a different, area of the sky. So some might be light, some might be dark. So we will put a little bit more dark in that. So I'm just going to darken up some little parts of it. Drop a touch of water in, just so, like so. So we've got some nice dark areas, especially at the top, because we're sort of looking up into the window, up to the ceiling, which will be dark. And we've got some slightly more darker here, and we're going down to some original blue, which has just been dabbed off a bit originally. So it looks like it's different kinds of angles in the windows. The bottom window, that's a different matter entirely, because we can see through it. Now it's got some nice yellows, some nice oranges in there, and it's going around to dark. So what we could do there is mix up some nice oranges and yellows, put them on, and then sort of pull them around with some water and get darker around the edge. So to do that, all we'll need to do here is that we put some this Naples yellow, and then we'll put some, I think this is Azo yellow deep, I believe, just to lighten, well, make it a little bit brighter, like so. And then I'm not going to go much for the color. I'm just going to go like we have some yellow at the top and the middle. Actually, I put a little bit of this is Azo yellow light straight out of the pan. Really make this light and bright. And then I'm going to put a little bit of cadmium red into that to make an orange, and I shall just put this around here. Maybe it's just a tiny bit stronger orange around one end. Not too, don't go too much into the middle because that's where we want the light. So we've got the light, the yellow, and it's radiating out into the slightly warmer, cooler orange. And that will do for that. Now while this is drying, we can do some work upon this part. As we can see, it does look nice and textured, but it needs a lot more texture on it. Can't really change the color much. We don't want to make it darker because I want the sunlight to make it look like it's sunlight coming down. So this underpass here, and this as it goes in, we're going to have shadow coming across there eventually, so it's going to look like a nice shadow area. But what we can do is we can, just like we did with this area here, as you can see, that splatter is turned into some really nice subtle texture. We can do exactly the same on there, with basically a darker colour of what we've got there. So what we need to do here is we'll just clean this. We'll have some raw sienna. We might just try raw sienna on its own. And I'm just going to dampen off this entire area. Just clean water. Very gently. So we don't want to lift the colour. That's why I'm just using a squirrel mop. So I'm just tickling the paper, I'm not scrubbing. And then we'll go into this paint and we'll just simply start and give it a bit of splatter. And as you can see, it does give quite a nice ancient old texture. We go back into this. And I'm going to stick maybe a touch of this colour just to make it a slightly darker, and I'm going to do the same thing. It looks quite extreme at the moment, but as we can see on the pavement, it does calm itself down a little bit, so being a bit careful here. And you know what, well, let's just go into this colour on its own and do a little bit of really dark splatter just in this corner. Now that's give a lovely bit of texture, merged colours. This is what it should look like. Doesn't look new. Now while we're waiting for this to dry, looking at this woodwork, we can start to put a little bit of tone in here, and all I'm going to do is using the original green I used in here and there in parts. I'm just going to put a secondary wash, so it's going to darken areas up. So I'm going to make the sun come from, I think, coming down this angle, so everything on this side is going to be in shadow eventually. So I'm just going to mix this colour and put some dark here. We're going to have a little bit of dark coming there because that's jutting out. That's jutting out from there, and instantly we can see that this now becomes more three-dimensional. This is going to be eventually in shadow, so I'll just darken it up by adding some of this green. This is going to be in shadow because remember, as the sun comes down, this overhang is going to cast a shadow, maybe it's perhaps about down to here. So I'll just put that shadow literally somewhere like that. And say that just gives it a little bit of depth just to this part of the picture now. Now while we're still waiting for this to dry, we can go back onto the pavement here and just do a little bit of more detailing. Now I think really the detailing would be just to give a little bit of some lines here and there, just to sort of simulate the you can see the paving stones. Now it's all dry. I'm just looking at the window. Now I've just put a little bit of green in the top. This is a banner which says the teddy bear shop, so I've put that in, and I think I'll put a little bit of dark around, like a vignette, around the bottom of the window using just a dark-ish colour. So just something like that. And I will soften the edge off with a bit of clean water, and hopefully we end up getting like a vignette. Darken these very corners up a little bit more. Just clean this bit off. So we want that, remember, we want this bit kept pristine. I think now it's time to take the masking fluid off the windows. So what I'm going to do, now the masking fluid is off, I'm going to mix up a nice shadow colour and start and put these shadows in to really give it a bit of depth. I've mixed up a shadow colour. This is it. This is just ultramarine blue and carbon black. So it's a nice sort of a dark, dull bluish colour. Now all we need to do is to figure out where we're going to put the sun. So as I said previous, I think I'm going to have the sun coming down from top left to bottom right. So this side of the woodwork is going to be in shadow. So all we need to do here is get lots of paint on the brush and paint all of this that's under the overhang. This is going to be in shadow to about here. All of this is going to be in shadow, and it's going to cast a little bit of shadow onto there. You're going to have a little bit of shadow going down into there. Well, a lot of shadow actually, because that is facing away from the sun. Now technically, I suppose we've got a house there, and this street is going away from us like this street. Big tall buildings, the sun's coming down, then these houses here, or these shops, are also should be in shadow. So I'm going to apply some shadow areas onto these houses, but I'm going to take some of the shadow colour there, make it a little bit weaker by adding some water, and then I'm just going to, I can go over these people. I'm going to put a bit of shading across there, maybe something like this. So it looks like all these houses now in shadow. Right, now this is now dry, and we can see we've got some deep shading in the recesses. We've got this part of the picture, all these buildings are in also now, we've got some shadow on. So we need to give a little bit of colour to these people. So just to give a bit of brightness, I'm going to just put these people in various shades of colour. we'll have a couple people in red. We maybe have someone in blue. Let's put a bit more colour in this individual. Let's get a little bit of black and just put a few legs in. I think we'll have this individual in a little bit of white, so a little bit of white ink might suffice. Now what we need to do is to go in and start with a fine liner pen and start to go over certain parts to give a little bit more definition. And one of these parts is the window frames, because it's just basically white paper. So we need to give a little bit of definition by putting a little bit of darken areas in where the shadow would be. So remember, if the sun's coming down here, really you're going to have some darker areas along here like so. Now this is where you don't have to be, well, I'm not going to be completely neat. All I want is to get some darker areas to show a little bit of definition. And of course this dark pen will contrast against the bright yellow. Now I've just done a little bit of work on it, just put with the pen, just overlaying, as you the beauty of pen and wash. So when you do your washes, you can go over it again, just overlay with the pen, make some lines darker, some lines a little bit more looser, just to free the area up if it gets a little bit too tight. And I'm using just the Lamy Safari because it's such an excellent pen for this type of thing. So I've got to do a little bit of modelling on the people. So with the people it needs to be loose, so all we're going to do is just draw from the outline I've just painted. We're not drawing figures as such, we're just drawing shapes. Now they're holding a bag, they're going to hold the bag there. Just something like this. It just gives a little bit of definition to them. I may put a blob of stronger colour on the reds just to make them stand out a touch more, but just very, very lightly, just emphasising here and little bits here and there. And it's the same to go on the pavement. Just make a few stronger lines just here and there. If you want, if you feel brave, you can just put a few little maybe lines or dots, but you can do this with a bit more splatter if you want. But now it's pretty much finished. We might just, I think I'll probably just put more shading on here and there, but we have little the signs, the lettering. This is going to be, it's always the difficult bit. Now on this, for example, we have some nice little shading here. So all we need to do, just follow what we can see. So now we've got the writing in. We've got the people in a bit more. We've got the shadows on, so now it looks like it's a much more sunny day. But all I want to do to finish this off really is to do a little bit more splatter. And I want to do a little bit more splatter, very weak paint. This is the original paint I used for this. And I just want a little bit of splatter on that area, just to darken it up a little bit more. And then I'll splatter with some clean water. Just dab it in around a bit just to get some nice textures in some areas that are more dirty than others. Now the final thing I've been doing is I've just been doing some hatching with a 0.03 fine liner just along the shadow areas. And all this does, it gives the shadow areas a little bit more texture. And all I'm doing is this. It just darkens it up slightly. You can see the lines, it gives it more texture as I've said, and it just gives it a little bit more character. We've got some nice texturing in the top through the splatter, and also some nice texturing in the pavement, also from splatter. The buildings on the right hand side are recessed, even though we can see some colour, so we know what they are, but they've been toned down, especially by putting the shadow colour on. The main window at the bottom of the shop, it's inviting. It's got the glow of lights on inside, in stark contrast to the window on the top floor, where it's just got more of the sky colour reflected in it. We've got some nice shading on with the pen at the very end. You can see from the top right hand window, you can see the pen marks. And all in all, this type of subject, these old shops, are a perfect example of pen and wash. They're the perfect subject because you can really go to town with the washes. Then when it's all done, you can really go to town with the pen, putting all the textures on, going over them with the hatching, cross hatching. Just makes it slightly more darker, but gives it added texture laid upon texture, and at the end of the day it looks quite nice. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you got something out of it. If you'd like to see more of this type of thing, then please give a subscription. If you haven't subscribed, leave a comment, and until next time, I'll see you again. So until next week, goodbye.